So we burned out the side hill, and we got all the way done. At that time, the fire had gone over the top of the hill, and in order to get back, we had to basically put bandanas over our face and run through a fire and jump over burning logs and things to get back. And I thought, this is the first fire I've ever been. I go, wow, is this what it's always like?
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation, in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
Here's a little story maybe you didn't know about me. I covered a lot of wildfires back in the day. I was a journalist in the Southwest during some especially hot and dry times about 20 years ago, and I was sent out to cover efforts to control fires and protect communities in places such as Durango, Colorado, and the White Mountains of Arizona. A few of us who did this kind of work frequently got some tools and some training from the U.S. Forest Service. Nomex fire-resistant clothes, a hard hat, and a portable fire shelter. The Forest Service also gave us training in how to deploy those shelters in an emergency, and it was at that training where many of us concluded that the best plan was to never get in a situation where we needed to deploy our fire shelters. But just having those tools at our disposal was a big improvement from some of the early days of wildland firefighting. 75 years ago, a crew of elite airborne firefighters called smokejumpers was sent out to control a blaze in Man Gulch, a remote spot in Montana. 15 firefighters went out in the blaze, but within an hour, 13 were dead or mortally injured. The tragedy had a major impact on our understanding of wildfire behavior and how crews can fight blazes and survive them when conditions change. John Petrus was a smoke jumper about 50 years ago. He's from Saranac Lake, but his firefighting work took him around the country. Today, he is a member of an organization that tries to honor the legacy of the people who died at Man Gulch 75 years ago and increase awareness of the work smoke jumpers do.
Well, the smoke jumpers actually started. The first jump was a fire jump was in 1940. And aircraft were starting to get big in the country, and some people thought they could be used for forest fires. A lot of people in the Forest Service thought no, because it was new. But they tried it, and they developed some strategies for it, and it was a way of getting into places that were remote, no accessible by vehicles. And getting there fast. And the idea was to be able to put a fire out quickly before it turned into a big conflagration. That was the idea of the thing behind it. At that time, there was also not a lot of helicopters, but even today, there's a lot of places where I've been on fires where you just can't get a helicopter close anyway. So it's really the only way of getting into really back country. Now, the way I started out on what's called a hot shot crew. And which is a crew that's designed just to do fires. That's all we do. We train, work out every day that we're not on a fire, and we get in tip-top physical shape, and we fight fires. I fought fires in 9 different states. We travel anywhere.
Why'd you want to do that?
Well, it was really kind of interesting the way I got into it. I was a graduate of the College of Forestry at Syracuse University, and the U.S. Forest Service has what they call a student requisition program, and they'll send possible jobs to various forestry schools around the country, and they can sort of bypass some of the hoopla and actually get a job. So I found one that was on a hotshot crew, and I got on the crew. So I did that for a couple of years, and I worked real hard. I loved it, and my second year, I was rated by my squad leaders and crew boss as being the most aggressive firefighter on the crew. So that year I applied for smoke jumpers. And smoke jumpers is very elite, very hard to get into. It's not an easy thing to become a smoke jumper. There were probably somewhere around 850 qualified people. They don't even look at you unless you're a good firefighter. So out of the 850 people that applied, there were 25 that they accepted. 5 guys washed out, and I was one of the 20 that graduated that year in 1973 and became a smoke jumper. So that's how I got into it.
Had you ever jumped out of a plane before that?
No, and they really don't care that you have. They'd much rather you be a firefighter, and they teach you how to jump. And there's a lot of techniques that we would use that are, unique maybe to smoke jumping, equipment and procedures and things. Now, later after that, I became a part owner of the Malone Parachute Club, which was an instructor, and I've taught 850 people how to parachute.
But probably not carrying the equipment that you would need for fighting a fire.
Well, yeah, we don't. The equipment is mostly just safety equipment that you're wearing, a special suit with padding and high collars and a helmet with a steel mesh on the top of it. And that's really what you jump with. It's maybe 73 pounds worth of equipment. All your firefighting tools, those are dropped later when they come by, and they drop a cargo drop in for that. So.
And does it depend from fire to fire on how many smoke jumpers go in to fight a particular blaze?
The smallest they'll go is 2 guys, and we like to do that. If they find one tree that's on fire and they try to jump 2 guys into it, get it out before it turns bigger, that's the ideal thing. So I've done that. I've jumped on jumps with 4 guys. I've jumped on with 16, and sometimes we have multiple loads and have 30 or 40 guys. Mostly it's smaller, 16 or less people.
Let me ask you what's going to sound like a dumb question here, but these are really remote places that clearly you can't get an airplane to land in, and that's why the planes are dropping the smoke jumpers and then dropping the equipment that they need. Once you've successfully gotten that fire out or contained or whatever, how do you get out of there?
Well, you said it all. There's no way to get in there, and there's no way to get out, too. So nothing can be left behind. We have our jump gear, which is 70-some pounds, plus shovels, axes, possibly a chainsaw, all your equipment, and none of that can be left, and cargo chutes. None of that can be left either. So we pack it up, and our packs weigh anywhere 110, 120 pounds, and then we carry those cross-country until we can find a road or a trail or something.
Wow.
And sometimes if you look at the Rocky Mountains, it might be up and down over mountains, and that's where you go. So that's sometimes packing out's the hardest part of the thing.
So how long did you do this?
Total firefighting 3 years. I was a smoke jumper for 1 year, and then I happened to get a job with an engineering company back here in northern New York, and I said, that's too good a deal. And I was married, and I said, well, I better take the good job. So that's what I did.
We were talking a little bit before we started recording here, and it sounds like you were on some pretty. I mean, any fire can be dangerous, but some particularly dangerous fires, things that we know as blow-ups.
I have been on a blow-up fire. I was actually the one that wasn't a blow-up. It was a 56,000 acre fire in Arizona. First fire I was ever on, as a matter of fact. We got the call at around. I was based in very northern part of Idaho. We got the call about 9:30 at night. They said they were going to leave at 1 o'clock in the morning to head to Coeur d'Alene. We're going to meet a plane at daybreak and fly down. So we got the call then. By the time we actually got there and got to the fire, it was like 9 o'clock next night. So it had been 24 hours. We've been kind of traveling and everything. And we were a fresh crew. So we got there, and they let us out, and we noticed that all of a sudden things are going the opposite way that we just came on the road. Bulldozers are running up the road, and everybody's packing stuff up. We go, what's going on? And they go, the fire's coming this way. It's going to burn up the fire camp. And we go, oh. And we had no idea. So finally our crew boss came by, and he got us out of the area. Once we got us set up at a new camp, we came back, and the place that we had originally gone was burned up. So we sent it out because I was one of the first guys in first crew. They said squad leader plus 2 guys. We took like highway flares. We stuffed them in our shirts, and we had to burn out a side hill. So we burned out the side hill, and we got all the way done. At that time, the fire had gone over the top of the hill, and in order to get back, we had to basically put bandanas over our face and run through a fire and jump over burning logs and things to get back. And I thought, this is the first fire I've ever been on. I go, wow, is this what it's always like?
Well, and you mentioned bringing the highway flares and burning out a hillside. For people who aren't familiar, the idea is that if you burn something before the fire gets to it, it doesn't have any fuel when it reaches there, right?
Exactly. And it gets it more on the ground and less likely to be burning up into the crowns of the trees. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes we do it. That's an effective thing to do.
So the reason we're having this conversation right now is because there's a really significant anniversary coming up, and that is is the 75th anniversary of something called the Man Gulch Fire, which was in Montana. Walk us through why that was such a watershed moment in, I guess, firefighting history or wildland firefighting history.
Well, it was on August 5th, 1949, and the smoke jumpers had been in existence since 1940. So they were relatively new. And the fellows got the fire call. They went to near Helena, which is probably a 45-minute flight from Missoula, Montana, wherever they're based.
And in those days, they're flying in things like DC-3s, which are,
Exactly.
really old kind of passenger liners, but
Yes.
pretty basic.
Yes. In fact, my first jump was out of a DC-3. So, but anyway, yes, and they got a call, and there's that aircraft holds 16 jumpers, and they get in there and they sit. There's no seats in the plane, of course. They sit on the ground facing the back with their feet spread apart and sit like you're riding a toboggan, kind of 2 rows of toboggan people. And they get there, and it was a very rough day. It was 97 degrees, hottest day than Helena up to that point. And the air was very rough. The plane ride was really bad. Normally they get there, we jump at 1,200 feet. They ended up jumping at 2,000 feet because the pilot was concerned about the rough air over the mountaintops. So they got down to the ground, got their equipment together, and the idea was to go down this Man Gulch on the south-facing slope, which wasn't on fire yet, and get down to the Missouri River, which is about 2.5 miles down to the bottom of the gulch, and then start putting out the fire from the bottom up and sort of go along the sides of it, the safest way to do it. So they started going down that way, and as they got closer to the end, they heard some awful impressive noise from this thing. As the fire jumped across the gulch from where it was on the other side and started heading up the valley, up the gulch, and it turned into a blow-up fire, which is a lot of wind, makes its own wind, and it just moving like crazy. So the crew boss said, "Turn around, let's got to get out of here, go back up the gulch." And there's a lot of trees there, but out west it's dry and there's trees, not like it is in New York State. Trees just tend to be farther apart in many areas, and there's a lot of grass growing under it. And in that fire, they had grass that was probably waist deep and dry because it was August. And the slope is extremely steep up Man Gulch. I visited there, and it's tough riding. So they started heading up there, and very shortly the crew boss said, throw your tools, we're just running. They started running up the hill, and the crew boss had this idea. It just came to him. He took out a match, he started burning the grass. And his idea was to follow that little fire, and as the main fire got to him, it would heat an area that had been burned out. He was going to get on the ground, put a wet bandana in his mouth, and put his face next to the ground, which he did, and he survived. He told the rest of his crew, come on, get in the fire with me, and they thought he was crazy. They made some disparaging remarks, and they said, we're getting out of here. And they ran beyond it. At the top of this Man Gulch, there is a cliff along the ridge of it. And it's probably 15 to 20 feet high. And there's several places where you can crawl through or climb through broken rocks and get up to the top. And 3 guys actually did that. 2 of them survived. 1 of them was burned on the top. But the rest of the crew started going, instead of going up to try to get over that cliff, they ran up the gulch, and they were all caught by the fire, and all of them died. So there's actually 13 people who died. One of the fellows was actually a jumper the year before that, and his mother was concerned that it was a dangerous job, so he quit smoke jumping. He started working in a local place. He got on that fire, and he was actually one of the ones that perished as well. But after that, there was a lot of concern by the Forest Service about training and techniques, and so the Forest Service, after that, did a lot of things. And they actually established a place where they study fires, and they learn about how they react and all this sort of stuff. So there's a lot of techniques that were learned from that we use today. So that was kind of the importance of it, I think.
Among them, the burnout technique,
Exactly.
the thing that the crew boss did.
Which is kind of interesting. When I was jumping in 1973, one of my friends, a fellow by the name of Rod McIver, was on a fire. And he got caught in a fire, and he put a rescue fire for himself. He got down, put his hands over his head. He burned the back of his hands and his ears, but he survived. And it was because of something that Wag Dodge, the crew leader, had devised back in 1949.
And it was really controversial at that point.
Exactly. Some of the people thought, the fire caught those guys. His fire caught those guys and burned them. But as you look at it, the two guys who survived actually went up slope or up valley of his fire, around his fire, and went up through the cut in the cliff, and they survived. So, maybe that's not really the case. These other guys, instead of trying to do that, they tried to run up the gulch, which was a long distance, and they just could not run it. They figured the fire traveled something like 3,000 acres in 10 minutes. It's just like unbelievable.
So you and I have a copy of the same book in front of us on the console here by Norman McLean. People might know him for A River Runs Through, which classic fly fishing story from Montana. But it's a book called Young Men and Fire. And I think for people who are especially interested in this story, it's really a remarkable account of what transpired.
Exactly. And interestingly enough, he was an avid fisherman. And when he was trying to as you said, he spent years going through there and going to Man Gulch and visiting it and trying to figure out how things happened. He was the one who noticed when you're fishing, when water hits a boulder, it goes around and swirls. So he started thinking about where the winds go on the Missouri River at that point, and he started looking at where the bend in the river was, and he noticed that on one side, the trees were all parallel pointing downslope, and on the other side where the blow-up started, their trees were all laying down parallel pointing up the valley. And so he figured that was a swirl there, and it caused that fire to go up, and that's part of what the reason was, because of the lay of the land and the way the air went. So he did a lot of research on it. He did his homework.
You were part of the National Smokejumpers Association, correct?
That's true, yeah.
And so among the things that you're doing are a series of memorial services, essentially, for the people who perished in this fire in their hometowns, including one. It's a little far from the North Country, but is from New York State.
A fellow by the name of Stan Reba was from Brooklyn. And so he was actually a World War II veteran, as 10 of the 13 jumpers were World War II vets, and probably the other 3 would have been, but they were only in high school during World War II. So he's buried in the National Cemetery in Farmingdale, Long Island. And so we've been in talk with the local American Legion there, and they're going to have an honor guard. We're going to do some ceremonies because of his fact that he was a veteran. Actually had a Purple Heart from World War II. So anyway, we're going to do hopefully a memorial service there. And we'd really love to have as many people there as possible. It was been difficult trying to find his relatives in Brooklyn. Without the phone books anymore, it's really hard to go and find somebody unless you know their whole name.
Can't pick up the phone and call the operator and ask for all the Rivas in Brooklyn.
Exactly. So we're just hoping that a lot of people will show up to this and really honor these fellows. I mean, they were guys who were patriotic. They did their job during World War II. They came back and they were really doing a big job, trying to preserve natural resources for the country in fighting forest fires, and they very tragically died in this fire. So we're 75th anniversary, which is actually the 5th of August this year. We're having the ceremony in Long Island on the 4th, Sunday the 4th, hopefully for more people to be able to show up.
What's the overall aim of the Smokejumpers Association?
Well, it's our goal is to preserve the idea of smoke jumping and the history of it. We do have some charities we do for smoke jumpers who've had some financial difficulties or that sort of thing, and we have some scholarships for families of smoke jumpers, but mainly it's just to preserve the history of it. And we do like to get together once in a while. But that's it, yeah.
Are your jumping out of plane days mostly done?
Well, my first jump was in June 25th, 1973. June 25th, 2023, which is the 50th anniversary, I went to Vermont, went up to 6,500 feet and jumped out.
To be continued?
Maybe.
Well, John Petrus, thank you so much for spending some time with us and telling us the story not just of the Man Gulch fire, but of smoke jumping in general.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. Appreciate it.
John Petrus lives in Saranac Lake and taught high school science for many years in Messina. Before that, he was a U.S. Forest Service smoke jumper, fighting wildfires around the country. He's a member of the Smoke Jumpers Association, which is holding memorial services around the country to honor the lives of the 13 firefighters who died in the Man Gulch blaze in Montana 75 years ago. There's more information at ncpr.org/northwards. Now here's Ethan Shanty to tell us who helps make this show possible.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, edited, and produced by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me, Ethan Shanty. Caitlin Kelly handles our social media, Bill Hanel is our digital director, and Doyle Dean is our production manager. Music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. To support this show and find more podcasts, visit ncpr.org. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.